quickly once it's their ass on the line. This European freeloader argument also dovetailed with a new line of Russian propaganda that had taken off in the summer of 2023. In a June interview, Vladimir Putin just kind of blithely let it slip that actually, about a month or two after the war started, Ukraine was just about to sign a ceasefire deal, but then pulled out at the last moment, under pressure from the West. And this deal was, according to Putin, a more generous deal than what Ukraine could get now. You see, all Putin had really wanted was a promise to keep Ukraine out of NATO. He didn't really care about Ukraine's internal affairs, or even if it signed a bilateral defense agreement, so long as it wasn't NATO. This meant, of course, according to Vladimir Putin, Ukraine had the option in the summer of 2022 of ending the war right then and there with good security guarantees and no real obstacle to its European integration. So, why didn't they take the deal? Well, you see, the people who run American foreign policy are congenitally evil and love war for war's sake, and so they sent their most subtle diplomat, a man who can be trusted to always stay on script, Boris Johnson, to convince Zelensky to walk out on the deal and keep fighting. Needless to say, this is not what happened. In fact, you can pretty quickly deduce what actually led Ukraine to say no by carefully reading the description of the security guarantee clause in the Russian offer. In this formulation, Ukraine's security partner would be a consortium between certain Western countries and the UN Security Council, with both the UNSC and the other countries needing to agree in order to approve an intervention in Ukraine against any foreign assault. But those countries would only be able to intervene in Ukraine against foreign aggression with the consent of the UNSC. But Russia, of course, has a veto on the Security Council, which means Russia was, under the guise of letting Ukraine have a security agreement, awarding itself a veto on any country's ability to intervene on Ukraine's behalf if Ukraine were to be invaded by, say, hypothetically, Russia. To turn this into a story of the West sabotaging a promising peace deal to satisfy, Jake Sullivan's inexplicable thirst for blood, or even just a story about the Ukrainians boneheadedly turning down a pretty good deal out of post-victory exuberance, it's perverse. But it lent itself to something people wanted to believe, that Russia was actually more reasonable than it appeared, and there actually was a sustainable ceasefire deal to be made, with the only drawbacks being national pride. Were it only so. This combination of the failed counteroffensive, the resentment of European helplessness, and this new alleged proof that the war had actually been unnecessary, created a new consensus that it was time to force Ukraine to end the war. Or as Americans preferred to formulate it to avoid feeling guilty, it was time for America to stop forcing Ukrainians to fight by giving them the weapons they asked for. And that new consensus created a perfect way in for a more entrepreneurial politician to pitch his new foreign policy ideas.
I will end every single international crisis that the current administration has created, including the horrible war with Russia and Ukraine, which would have never happened if I was president.
As he told it now, Americans were victims of a global